Well, hello, ladies, gentlemen, and everyone in between. How the heck are you? I am Diana Clarion, the Lavender Lady, and this is Coffee with Lavender. Pull up a cup of coffee, pull up a chair, get comfortable, and get ready for some good stuff and learning. And I hope everyone's doing pretty well in this heat because let me tell you something, the air conditioning has been running continuously for the last couple of days, and I'm just waiting for the electric bill to come at the end of the month. That's going to be a whole lot of fun. Okay, today we have for you a wonderful person who you've seen here, there, and everywhere, and she is now a guest on Lavender Lady. The one, the only, the brilliant, the beautiful Triateyal. Hello,
Hey,
hello, hello. And
hey.
I understand that you have some very, very, very good news. Well, you've had some very good news for a few
Yes,
days now.
it's been about a week, I think. Last week I found out that my resignation through the Mormon Church went through. I basically officially told them to go stuff themselves. Um, I was tired of being counted as a member. I was tired of being on the registry, so I pretty much told them, take me off of your membership rolls.
That is just amazing. When I think about it, because that is not a very popular thing, is it? I mean, a very widespread thing, is it? As far as a church having you on the registry. Now, I grew up Catholic, and of course, once Catholic, always Catholic. That happy crap. But I don't know
Yeah,
of anybody
well,
else that does that. Do you?
I I think there might be some, but it's extremely rare. I don't know how Jehovah Witness works. You'd have to ask Nacha or somebody who's an ex Jehovah Witness. Because I have heard that they track their members too. But the way it works in Mormonism is when you get a baby blessing, if you were born in the church, they they make your membership number for you. So your name and your membership number is on there.
Oh
You're not
no!
considered you're not considered a member of the church at that point, but they go ahead and get the information down when the baby blessing happens. And then when you're at 8, they actually count you as a member and you get your baptism and you get what they call the gift of the Holy Ghost. Um, and that membership number and that membership record it resides essentially in two places. It resides in the database at Salt Lake City, and then there's a computer that is at your home ward, what we would call our congregation. There's a computer at the home ward that has access to Salt Lake City, and they can pull up your membership file. Now, what a lot of Mormons don't know and a lot of non-members don't know is that your membership file basically it doesn't contain everything about you, but if you've had church discipline or if they think that you're a troublesome member or something along those lines, they'll put that in your file. And what happens is when you move, those files go to the congregation that you move into. So when you resign like I did, they move your name from a membership file to a non-member file. They still have that information, unfortunately, but nobody at the local level where you live will have access to that information. It's all handled by Salt Lake City at that point.
Okay, so I take it that's a little better. Um,
It is because, for instance, in my case, one of not the biggest reason or the most important reason, but one of the reasons why I took my name off is my family is talking about moving when my dad retires.
okay, fine.
I have lived I have lived in this area in the same house with the exception of like a few years in between in the same ward for basically a good portion of my life. When we moved, I didn't want the locals in the next area to think I was some kind of project to try to reactivate. And so the locals will not have my information unless they get it from somebody else.
Okay, yeah, you're talking about being a project. So these people will basically harp on you all over the place.
Yes, they if your name is on the rolls, they assume that they have permission to ask family members, friends, go look through public records. They assume that they have the right to go looking through all that stuff to find you if they want to reactivate you.
Oh Lord, um, I don't know. I don't know how much you know about the case law involved in any of these things, but I would be one to think that case law would have, to some extent, decided against these folks being allowed to do that. But it's a religion, so I guess they get a free
It's a
pass.
religion, and it's also a super rich religion run by very elite men. I think the current prophet, I believe his prior career before he became prophet, was a heart surgeon. Or there, I know that there's a heart surgeon somewhere in there in the top. There's a lawyer somewhere in there in the top. They're all prestigious businessmen with billion hundred at least $100 billion at their disposal. And so
Wow.
between it being a church and having a lot of money and being prestigious old men, they kind of get away with quite a bit that they shouldn't. And I know the
Wow.
Mormon church is not the only one that gets away with things, but that's the one that I know the most.
Wow. That is really, truly to me amazing. I mean, even the Catholics don't get in your pocket that badly.
Mm-hmm.
I left the Catholics behind well over 40 years ago. I like to say I gave up Catholicism for Lent and I never looked back. And I've never heard anything out of any of them. But
Yeah,
you would.
I might. It we have something that we call in Mormonism called the bishop roulette. Sometimes you get a really good bishop who might say, "Hey, you've moved in the area. Let me throw out the welcome wagon." And if you say no, they say, "Oh, okay, well, nice to have talked to you or whatever," and then leave it alone. And then you have other bishops who are all about the numbers and the stats and make everything look pretty and make everything look like, the ship's running really well. And then you'll have a bishop who's like, we must bring in all of the inactives.
Oh, man. Um, Doing a little bit of typing. Forever. There we go. Because Johnny Drive-By asked me if I got myself off the Catholic roster. Um, and my understanding, just to take a quick sidetrack here, is that they don't do that anymore. That once a Catholic, always a Catholic. You can't get off the roster. Okay, that's done. Let's get back to you, hon.
Yeah.
Because okay, when you were talking about computers and soft on Salt Lake City and the local stuff, uh, do you know offhand how long the Mormons have been doing this thing of tracking everybody? Because it would seem to me like it would be something that would require a good deal of technology to keep up on, or a good deal of persistence.
I'm
So,
not sure. I'm not sure because I do remember as a child, they don't do it anymore because it looks bad. But when I was a kid, we're talking like late
a
80s,
couple of years
early
ago, right?
90s. Yeah, yeah, about a couple of decades ago. They would every fast Sunday, which is the first Sunday of the month, they would announce all of the people who had moved into the ward, and they would have people stand up so that you could recognize who the new people were and greet them. And at the time when I was a kid, I just thought everybody just like submitted their information to the bishop for the bishop to do that. And that's what I assumed. Now I'm looking back and I'm like, um, I don't think that information was given to the bishop by the actual person. I think they were being tracked somehow because a lot of times they would call out names and nobody would stand up, and that person would never show up at the church at any point. So they've been tracking
Okay.
for a while. I don't know how it worked back then. I know how it works now because I've stumbled across the information, which I'm not going to share because it's basically um, in the wrong hands could be used for all kinds of crappy stuff.
Okay
So,
then. Yeah,
but I'm
absolutely.
not going to go too much into details. But they don't stop at just they will ask your family members, like if they can't get in touch with you, they will ask your family members for your phone number or your address, or they'll go looking through public records and different things like that if they want to find you. And the
Yeah.
thing is that, like I said, it's a bishop roulette. Sometimes you get a bishop, what other denominations would call a pastor, but the bishop may or may not pursue it. It all depends on what kind of a person that bishop is and whether or not they've got a whole bunch of other stuff on their plate. Because bishops, as much harm as they do sometimes, a lot of it's ignorance and a lot of it is having way too much on their plate and not being trained.
Okay. Let's see. Okay, I've got a little something there that I have to look up and put in your description here. But the thing is, what did you have to go through? It sounds like these people are have their claws in everything, and as you say, they have a lot of money behind them. A lot of old white-haired guys, at least a
Mhm.
few attorneys. What
Yeah.
is it that you had to go through to actually get yourself extricated from their grip?
I chose to go through Quit Mormon. You can go through Quit Mormon, or there are resources available for you to go by other means. Quit Mormon is a lawyer service run by Mark Noggle, who is an ex-Mormon who was so pissed off after he tried to leave the church that he said, "Guess what? I'm going to try to get people out of the church for free." Um, he runs a one man. It's basically a one man show with a web developer. He basically pays a web developer because he's not he does, but that's basically all that person does. He handles all of the information. He does everything. Um, and when you go through Quit Mormon, you you sign a letter basically saying, "Hey, I want out. I don't believe anymore. You can't convince me to come back. Leave me alone." And then he submits that to the church. Now, when I first started the process, all you had to do was submit the letter through Mark to the church, wait a little while, and then you'd get your stuff back. Most people on average would wait about a month and not have too many problems. Maybe their bishop might contact them. um, but what happened was there was a mass resignation because the uh, the big event that they hold every October, they said some really homophobic and transphobic crap,
Oh, yay.
and it was very blatantly obvious. It wasn't even like hide it with a smile. It was very obvious. There were some other issues I don't really remember, but basically about 5,000 people decided to resign in one day.
Oh, boy.
And the average on Quit Mormon is about 30 to 50 a day. So it's what if you want to watch something fun, wait until the church screws up and then go to Quit Mormon and watch how many people are in the queue. It's entertaining to watch.
Oh, my word.
It's um, but so the church. got mad that so many people were trying to resign at once. So the church decided that that some of them had to have been fraudulent claims, or so they said. Um,
Mm.
so they said, well, we're not going to accept any of them until you can guarantee us that you're not sending us fraudulent resignations. And so, right as I would have normally gotten my resignation through, I got an email saying that I needed to send photo ID in order to continue using Quit Mormon. At that time, I had the option of creating a letter myself and going straight to my bishop, but I didn't want to do that because, again, when you try to leave, they send people to try to love bomb you back in. And I also didn't want to go through the interview that the church kind of forces bishops to do, that basically says, put the person in the room and try to convince them that they don't want to leave, like whatever means necessary that you can do. So you can have, are you really sure you want to leave? No, you can't be sure. You can't know what you're doing. I know better than you, so I'm going to throw away your paperwork.
Oh, yay!
Yeah, I mean, and I didn't think that the bishop, that, because I grew up with the bishop. He was not bishop when I was a child, but I know of him because I grew up with him. Um, I didn't think he would lose any of my paperwork or not push it through, but I didn't want to have the conversation of trying to convince him that I needed to be let go, because honestly, they look for any loophole to be like, no, we can convince you to stay. We can work on your faith, or we can do this, or we can do that. Or um, it's well known I have problems with certain people at my old ward, and that probably would have been one of the reasons that they would have claimed I was trying to leave. And then, well, you can't leave without, like, you know, um, fixing things with the person you're upset with, and it's like, I don't want to go through that. So I let my resignation sit for about, I don't remember if it was 1 month or 2 months, but it was enough time to where the whole process started over again, because I was debating whether or not I wanted to give up, or whether or not I wanted to give my ID over to this lawyer who I figured was reputable, but like, it's kind of scary to give your ID over the internet.
Yeah, it is.
And
Really.
even if you're pretty sure that that person is trustworthy, it's still kind of scary. I was also afraid that the church would demand my identification as part of the process later on, and that was also something that was kind of scary to me. Or the other option was just, like I said, just let it all go, or go to the bishop, or give my ID over. Those were my options, and I didn't know what I wanted to do. So the time limit I was given to give my ID kind of lapsed. And so I was like, all right, while I'm deciding, I'll just, figure all of this out. We'll find out what's going on. I don't remember what happened. Oh, no, I do remember what happened. In April, the big event where that I mentioned earlier, it happens twice a year. It's called General Conference, and all the big guys get together and give talks that are supposedly like directions and instructions for the church as a whole, like the entire church. It is a huge event. General Conference hit in April, and basically President Nelson, who is the prophet and who is the head honcho, um, said something to the effect of, "I'm not sure that people who leave will get a second chance in the afterlife."
Oh, Lord.
And that that is completely against the teachings that have been there since the beginning. Like, it's basically, he was basically contradicting, I didn't, he was basically contradicting foundational teachings that I had been taught. And like, we had always been taught that if you decide to walk away from the church, you can get a second chance in the afterlife. If you've never heard of the church, you get a second chance in the afterlife.
Okay, we seem to have lost you. Your audio seems to have gone, Tria. Did you did you bump your microphone?
Is it better?
Now it's good. Now it's good.
Okay. It,
So
it,
we lost maybe about the last 10 seconds.
yeah. But we were basically taught that if you somehow miss your chances or you walk away from your chance, that in the afterlife you are able to change your mind and say, yes, I will follow the teachings of Mormonism in the afterlife. This is a core teaching. This has been taught from the beginning, and this is taught basically as a way of, even if your family falls astray, you can still have hope that they'll come back, even if it's in the afterlife. And Nelson was like, I'm ripping that out from under everybody and saying, I don't think it's possible if you leave the church, which caused a lot of pain and heartache for a lot of people.
Well, I
And
could imagine if you get this thing of, okay, I leave, I will still have that second chance, and they're banking on that, and then find out no, that's not the. Well, it's not. You're
yeah,
finding out it's not the case. It's
yeah,
some
we
humans
had
decided that.
on the ex Mormon forums that I hang out on, a lot of people were saying my parents are in hysterics, my children are in hysterics, you know, our families are panicking. Like, it was terrible. And I said, no, you know what? I need to decide whether or not I'm going to continue through Quit Mormon or I'm going to my bishop. I need to figure this out now.
Mm-hmm.
And I sat down and I told my family that I was resigning because I knew that they were going to find out one way or another. There's they're not supposed to tell, but they always do. And
And that's got to be really good. It's more violation of privacy.
yeah, yeah. And since I'm in the same ward as my dad, the likelihood is even higher than if I were living away from my family. Um, but I sat my family down. I said, "Hey, I'm resigning." I said, "I've tried to wait. I've tried to be patient. I thought for a little while to see if things could get better." And I said, I'm resigning. So it took me about a week after I told them to finally kind of get everything together and decide which direction I was going. I sent my ID through Quit Mormon. Um, like I said, it's a risk, but at the same token, Mark has been doing this for years. He is an accredited lawyer. He is on the bar. So if he gives my information away without my consent, he will lose, he will lose his ability to be a lawyer.
Okay, so he's doing this in his capacity as an attorney.
Yes, he is doing it
Okay,
as an
okay.
he is basically saying, I am your lawyer pro bono. I will do all the lawyery things. Um, so he is an actual lawyer. He's not just it's not just a it doesn't it's I've heard of lawyer services where it's not actually a lawyer, it just sounds a lot like a lawyer. That's not what this is.
Okay.
Um Basically, when the letter was sent, it says my client has said they want out. He will direct everything through me, their attorney. And then if you break that contract, you're this is legally you're supposed to contact me. Um, and so I finally submitted that, and then I waited for a while to hear back because the way it goes is the church gets to your resignation when they get to your resignation. Um, and
And of course,
once
they have no incentive to do so.
no, they don't.
Yeah.
They really don't. They do them in batches so that it doesn't look like people are massively resigning all at once. But um, people have started taking screenshots on the days where the queues get high, which is and aligning them with the dates. They'll make sure that the date is somewhere on there, so you can still see it, even though the church wants it to look like people are resigning en masse. Um, but anyways, I sent that in, and then I waited for 2 months. Now, once your stuff is sent to the church, you have no clue what's going on from that point. All you know is that if you get a certain deadline, that you can ask Mark what's going on and have him push for it to be done. But like there's nothing. You don't get emails, there's no updates. All you know is that it's been sent to the church and you're just waiting for them to finish all of the paperwork on their end.
Sounds like getting monetized through YouTube. There are stories. Anyway.
Yeah, that's a similar but different subject. But so I was waiting for it, and then one day my dad came home and said the bishop has your resignation. And
Um, yeah, I'm sure we're gonna get the news on this one because it
yeah,
doesn't sound quite right.
and I was really pissed, and my dad didn't understand why, because in his brain he's been taught that he is in charge of our family. He is the patriarch of not just my sister and I, but he is also the oldest sibling still living. So he also has a responsibility to his younger sister and her family as well. He is considered the head honcho for our family. And so the church considers it his business to know when somebody is breaking up the family. And spiritually speaking, by me resigning, I am breaking up our chances of all uh, being together basically in the afterlife.
Oh boy, yeah.
And
Um,
also, I'm fairly certain that the bishop thought that I hadn't told my dad because the bishop doesn't really know me that much, even though he was one of the more prominent members of our ward when I was growing up. I think the bishop thought that I hadn't told him
well, maybe there
and
was a
was gonna.
reason you hadn't told him. Like maybe you didn't want him to know yet. Come on.
Well, and the thing is that like it was frustrating for me because I had told dad I was resigning, and you don't get told when the bishop gets your paperwork. You don't get that information. You only hear when it's done. So I didn't know the bishop had it, and I was pretty sure the bishop was going to tell my dad he did. I kind of knew that from the beginning. Um, Now, fortunately, what I was afraid of didn't actually happen, and I was afraid that they were going to ask my dad if I had permission to leave. Because
Permission.
I have heard people who have had their parents go in and say no, as their parents, they can't leave. Doesn't matter your age.
Holy hell.
Yeah.
This is really messed up. So You basically have no identity of your own. Is this what I'm
No,
getting?
no, I have no. As a single unmarried woman, I am under my dad's supervision. If I were married, I would be mostly under my husband's supervision in most cases, and then in other cases be under my dad's supervision. But as a married woman, or as a woman, I would have to um, answer to a priesthood holder, to a male, for damn near about everything. And that is also another reason why I left, because I remember before I even stopped considering myself Mormon, like even when I was just kind of inactive and thought I might go back someday, I was like, there's no way that I should have to go through a male to get to God. It should be a direct link from me to God. If I am a daughter of God, like they've taught me, a beloved child, like they taught me at church, I should be able to go straight to God without having to go through all of these men.
Yeah, and besides, one would think that God would be the man that you answered to, but that doesn't work because they know that God man isn't here. So you got to go through some
Yeah,
guy that really is here.
yeah.
It's like,
Like,
hello.
like because I was not a married woman, there were certain rituals that I was not allowed to do. There were certain rituals that I was not given access to, that there's no reason for that except to keep you under a male thumb. Like, there's honestly no reason for me to have not been allowed to those rituals.
Man, that is amazing. And well, you started talking about why you were personally considering leaving. Do you know offhand what the main reasons are that people will decide
Um,
to leave?
I and I actually have more reasons than that, but the big ones are, um, and in my case, this was also one of them. We were told growing up that certain things were anti Mormon lies devised by people who were followers of Satan to get us out of the church. Every single one of those things that I was told was an anti Mormon lie was actually the truth. All of the things that I was told were lies were actually what happened.
Oh, okay. You're basically speaking of the history of Mormonism here, then.
Yeah, the history
Okay,
of
okay.
Mormonism. Stuff like we were told that Joseph Smith used like a pair of glasses type things to translate the Book of Mormon. And oh wait, no, he didn't. He used a seer stone that he found at the bottom of a well. And apparently the seer stone was the lie, we were told that that was the lie, but that was actually what happened, was he used the seer stone. And there's like about 10 or 11 of those types of things that are taught not just to members but part of the missionary discussions to get new people in. And it was just like, what other information are they not telling us? Like,
Yeah,
the
yeah.
amount of, you once you dive into history, you find out that you know absolutely nothing, and anything you do know is pretty much a lie or a embellished, like to make it look to make it sound fancy type thing. And that is a big reason why a lot of people leave. Another big reason is the strict gender roles, the LGBTQ problems, LGBTQ plus problems. Um, the church is very, 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 very much, you are going to be in a cis hetero relationship, the end.
Oh
Um,
man.
and not only that, they don't just say that members of the church should be that way. They teach the members of the church to vote that way so that other people can't have marriages or relationships that um, outside of the cis hetero norms.
Okay, sounds
Um,
quite fundamentalist there.
yeah, and they will put money into it. They have been fined once by by law. They got caught putting dumping money into Proposition 8 when it came out in California. They got fined a couple of $1 million because they spent church money for propaganda to prevent Proposition 8 so
Okay,
that
and
same sex marriage couldn't happen.
that sounds a little bit like the reverse of Ken Ham. They're using church money to affect government, whereas Ham was using government money to promote his church. It does work both ways, yeah.
Yeah, it does work both ways. That is a huge one. Um, a lot of people just, I think those are the two biggest reasons. Some people do leave because they did get mentally harmed by the church.
Okay,
But
fine.
the thing is that usually what happens if you leave because you were hurt, you find out all of the other stuff and that's what keeps you away. Like it seems like there's a reason that sends you out, but there's more reasons that pop up that keep you from going back.
Yeah,
Um,
and I see Mark Caesar asking, were you discouraged from investigating Mormonism online
yes,
and whatnot?
yes, we were to stay in the scriptures. We were to stay in church manuals. Um, we were to not look if somebody gave us like a sheet of paper with like this is the truth about Mormonism. We weren't even supposed to look at it. We were just supposed to throw it away. Um,
Ooh, that sounds a lot like JW's.
oh yeah, yeah.
Okay.
The and the resources were kept kind of hidden. You could find them if you were looking for them, but we were also kind of trained not to go looking for stuff. Um, right now, for instance, um, the church announced that they don't want to be that the don't want to be called Mormons anymore. Well,
I
the
remember you
reason
talking about
is,
that earlier. Yeah.
yeah, there's two reasons for that, and both of them are basically PR. If you aren't allowed to use the word Mormon anymore, you're not going to go look. You're not going to Google Mormon and find all the headlines on all the bull crap that the church is doing, because that's the easiest way for you to go and figure out, what's going on. If Mormon is a victory for Satan, and you don't want to help Satan, then you're not going to type or say Mormon. So then you're not going to see the headlines that says Mormon church does this, because for a while there, if you typed in Mormon, you got headline after headline of all of the really just terrible stuff that the church was doing.
I can half imagine, considering that a lot of the other denominations are guilty of a lot of terrible things as well. I mean, see the Catholic Church.
Yeah,
That's my
yeah.
favorite bone to pick.
Um,
But
yes, it was actually a rebrand, and this is why I refuse to stop calling them Mormon. I, I'm also not the kind of person to take the high road if I don't think the other person's going to afford me the same. Like
mm-hmm.
if I feel like somebody is going to afford me the same respect I'll afford them, then I I I have no problem with that. But if you're going to be like, you need to take the high road and I'm going to do whatever the hell I want, no, I don't play that game.
So they take you take the high road, they take the low road, and you'll meet in Salt Lake City for you, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, no, I don't, that's not for me. The other reason why I dislike the thing was when I was inactive and I was pretty much decided I was out of the church. I've decided I'm not going back to church. I'm not really Mormon anymore. I'm just going to go inactive for a little while. But I knew I wasn't going back. The sister missionaries They're basically two women who are on their mission, were assigned to me essentially to come by and see if I needed help with anything. And it's and they were really nice. They meant well. They came over and they were like, "Hey, we have the I'm a Mormon campaign. You know, because our prophet has decided that we need to embrace the word Mormon." There was stuff going on that they were trying to cover up. I think it was a documentary or something that had come out in England that they were trying to cover up. So they were trying to get I'm a Mormon. They spent millions on advertisements. They put advertisements on buses. They put advertisements in train stations. They had every member create a profile on this I am a Mormon website. They tried to get all of the inactive people. I mean, every time I saw somebody from church, even in passing, they told me that I should be creating a profile for I'm a Mormon. They
Wow.
had I'm a Mormon in the mission centers. It was everywhere. And this was like about a decade ago. And then the prophet decides that since Mormon is hitting now, in the past year, when the Mormon church was getting a lot of bad press, they decided to redirect the bad press by announcing that they didn't want to be called Mormon anymore. And of course how news works is once you have a new shiny thing, you forget about the old thing.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Um,
So all of the stuff that was going on kind of got buried under news of Mormons don't want to be called Mormons anymore. And I was like, so wait, you're telling me that you spent millions of dollars that your church membership gave you for victories for Satan?
oh my. And okay, well, I'm just thinking of Dana Carvey showing up, and for those who don't remember, Dana Carvey played Church Lady. You know, could it be Satan? But Bionic Dance is an interesting question, and I've actually wondered about that myself, really and truly. She asks, where did that extra M come from anyway? I mean, don't they take their name from the angel Moroni? If I have that,
No.
and then clearly they're morons.
Actually, if you take the M out of one of the M's out of Mormon, you also get moron. But no.
Yeah.
So Joseph Smith was a con man, and he was making
Well,
up a lot of shit as he was going along. And when he originally started everything, he planned on making everything through Moroni, but for some reason switched over to Mormon. So you'll have some references to where it would have been the Book of Moroni, but it wound up being the Book of Mormon pretty early on.
okay.
He flip flopped on quite a few things.
Well, he
It
was,
was
yeah.
it was basically whatever he thought he could get away with at the time, and a lot of it worked. Um, so, but yeah,
Casey,
no, it's
I,
they want to be called their full name right now, and even if I wanted to respect that,
that's just too many
really
damn syllables.
the full name, like the full name.
I mean, is it any fuller than the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter day Saints? Or is that it? I mean, are there more
That's
syllables
it.
than that?
That's it.
Okay. Um,
And the thing is that most people don't know the full name of the church outside of the church. So you'll hear these conversations. I haven't personally come across them, but I hang out a lot excuse me, a lot in the ex-Mormon Reddit. And it's funny how people have to watch. Basically, ex-Mormons will watch their family members squirm and not try to say Mormon, while people have no damn clue what the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints is. And so they'll be like, I'm from the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. What church? The Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. I, I'm sorry, I'm not familiar with that church. It's this church. Oh, you mean Mormon? We don't call ourselves Mormon anymore. Ha! You said Mormon.
That's beautiful. I love it.
Yeah,
Um,
and they'll try to say any word except for that, and it's like it's impossible to do because it's a mouthful. Nobody really knows the name of your church because you've branded yourself as Mormon.
mhm.
And I'm betting in 10 years, when they need another distraction, they'll go back to calling themselves Mormon again. Just give it 10 years.
Wow. That is totally amazing. As far as the stuff that goes on and reasons people want to leave, etc., do they suffer some of the problems, shall we say, that other denominations suffer? In other words, I know they don't have altar boys, but do the equivalent in Mormonism have anything to worry about from the prophets? And that's another interesting term. We'll get.
Um, yeah. So the bishop, and again, for people who have walked in late, the bishop is basically the word for pastor. I will use both interchangeably because I, my brain goes straight to bishop because that's how I was raised. But your your local leadership, basically how things are arranged is you are told what ward or congregation you are supposed to go to based on where you live. It is not negotiable. So where I live, I have my family has a building assigned to us. We have a bishop assigned to us. We have a building and we have the times that we are supposed to show up to church. You don't choose. It's
They
told to you.
they do it that finely. In other words, we have services at 10 and noon. You don't show up at noon. We want you there at 10. It's
Yes.
that fine of a control.
Yes.
Holy heck.
So your bishop, now this applies to people who either are their parents converted with their children, or or you were born in the church like I was. Um so your when you turn 11, actually no, it's the way they have it set up, and I don't know how to describe it, is the year you turn 11, that January you move up into the youth program. So if your birthday is, say, in November, that previous January you will move up to the youth program. So it's the year you turn 11, that January you move up to the youth program. When you move up to youth program, you start doing temple rituals. And the temple rituals for the youth are the baptisms for the dead and the confirmations of the Holy Ghost for the dead, which a lot of people are familiar with.
Yeah, that just
Um,
makes no sense to me, but that's another
uh,
story entirely.
Yeah, that goes into plan of salvation stuff, and we'd never get to any other topic if I did that.
Yeah, let's save
I,
that for the after show if you don't mind sticking
yeah.
around.
Oh yeah,
Oh
no, I
yay.
can totally do that. But when you turn 11, you start doing temple rituals. Now, the way the temple is set up, your church building that you go to every Sunday, anybody can go. It's open to the public. Anybody can go. You're not barred from going unless you've been kicked out for some reason, like a disturbance or something. The temples, only people who are considered worthy can go because they are considered by Mormons to be the holiest places on earth. If you have sinned, you cannot go.
Well, in other words,
And what
nobody can go then, right? Because
a lot
none
of
are
people
without
lie.
sin.
Well, and the thing is that sometimes the bishop can sometimes, if you mess up or make like a more minor one, they'll be like, "All right, well, let's work with you before it's time for the temple, and we'll get that sorted for you before you go, because nobody's perfect." So,
Yeah.
but basically, if you've done the major sins, you cannot go, and one of the major sins is just like any other Christian faith, is having sex before marriage, having gay sex, basically any form of sex before marriage at all, or any sex that is not with your spouse, will keep you from the temple. The thing is that teenagers usually are pretty horny.
Oh, really? I didn't know
Yes,
that.
you and I say usually because I realized I was an abnormality. I realized that I was not typical for a teenager.
Well, I was just thinking as you were talking about that they Mormons should really love you, but they don't, do they?
No, because I was not able to become the baby breeding machine because that is the end goal for all women is to be a mother and to be a wife. It is that is your goal. You're told that that is your goal from the time you are little. That is your goal. And so
For
what
the love of
happens
Saint
is
Gulick.
these untrained clergymen, they do not have hardly any training. They're basically given like these are the basic ropes and here you go. They're told that they have the spirit of discernment, which means they think that they can figure out if you're lying. They think that they can figure out if you're actually sinning. They think that they can figure out how to deal out punishments and how to handle your repentance process. And these untrained guys who are overworked, not paid, not trained, are asking children questions about what kind of sex they may or may not be having. And these
Oh!
kids are trained, and we are trained from the time we are little kids that in order for you to repent of major sins, you have to confess fully and completely, and the bishops are trained to ask questions to get the what they consider to be the full story.
This doesn't sound a little pervy at all now, does it?
Oh, it there are horror stories. It used to be Protect LDS Children. I don't remember the name. I think it's Protect Every Child. They've actually been fighting to get rid of the bishop interviews, because they're ludicrous. They shouldn't be done for adults, honestly, but they really should not be done for children.
Yeah.
Um, that it's just it, and I didn't get any of that because I was assumed to be pure because I was so disinterested in guys. Like it was glaringly obvious in high school how disinterested I was in the guys. Like I didn't even notice they were there half the time. So
Well,
basically,
that's a
I
start.
didn't. Well, and the thing is that it's one of those things where it's like, and on the one hand, my asexuality hurt me a lot being at church, but on the other, it kind of saved me from a couple of things and those bishop interviews. Because basically, they would be like, "Are you keeping the law of chastity?" I have to ask this. It's like, yeah, okay. And that was the conversation for me. But it's not like that for other kids. Um, and also, if you get assaulted, by a member of the church, you are supposed to go to the bishop, and the bishops are often trained to keep it quiet. And also, the way that things are worded at talks at General Conference is very, very victim blamey. And the girls are always blamed more than the guys when stuff goes wrong. Always. Like, I'm not saying that bad shit doesn't happen to the boys or that it's not traumatic for them, especially if they get molested, but it's always like girls get 2 to 3 times more the punishment than a boy ever will.
Wow.
And these kids are told to go to the bishop and not go to a therapist.
Yeah, I mean,
You
there's
have
the big
kids who are
one.
traumatized. You have the possibility of kids who are traumatized either by direct somebody directly meaning harm to them or a bishop not knowing what he's doing and causing harm.
And then there's the other thing. I mean, you're told to go to the bishop if there's a problem. What if the bishop is the problem?
You move.
But you're
You
not
are
allowed
supposed to
to, right?
move
They tell
from
you.
you. There was a lady who had a problem with the bishop. I don't remember quite what it was, but it was a serious problem. And she said, this guy does not need to be in power. And she went to the stake president, which is like the next person up on the level. And the stake president looked at her and said, if you have a problem with your bishop, then you need to move out of your house and move into a different ward boundary.
Oh, Lord. Okay. So they're actually telling you that you have to uproot yourself, perhaps
Yep.
change jobs, etc., because of something their hierarchy did. Yay!
Hmm.
I love it.
Yeah. Yeah. You're like, I wasn't kidding earlier when I said you are assigned your bishop, you are assigned your ward building, you are assigned the time that you show up, you are assigned the other people that you go to church with. You don't choose the people you go to church with. You either go to that church or you don't show up.
Wow. And they don't like it very much when you don't show up. So
Oh no, they don't. They
that
don't.
is totally
And
amazing.
even when you do, if you're not doing enough activities, they'll still treat you like you're inactive. My sister is considered quasi inactive, even though she shows up to church every Sunday.
Oh,
Of
what?
course,
Because
it
she's
doesn't
not.
help that I left. It doesn't help that I left. It got worse after I left. But yeah, they've been treating her like she's an inactive because she only goes to sacrament and to Sunday
Yeah, I
school.
was going to say she's not participating in the extracurriculars. But then again,
No.
it's not the easiest thing in the world for her.
Well, it's
Right.
not. It aggravates me. It aggravated me because remember the letter I told you about where they were like, "We miss you."
Yeah, yeah.
They sent her the exact same one, and I was like, "But she shows up to church every Sunday. You, if you wanted her at those things, you could make sure that she has a way to go." I'm like,
Yeah, I mean, they've got the cash. Couldn't they call Uber or something for her? I mean,
they could come pick her up.
yeah,
It's I'm not going to bite their heads up. I have never been mean face to face to a member like unless I've got beef with them outside of just, disagreeing with how they with their world perspectives. I I've never bitten a member before other than the jackasses that I've had to deal with cuz at any church no matter how good or bad, you're going to have jackasses.
oh, sure. Yeah. I mean, even with the Unitarian Universalists back when I was doing that sort of thing, you found the occasional jackass there. And as far as I know, they're the nicest. Um, Call them a denomination, if you will, that I know of anyway.
Yeah. But my dad and my sister are considered quasi inactive partially because of me, but also because they don't show up to any of the extra stuff. My sister doesn't show up to any of the craft night. She doesn't show up to any of the exercise things that they do, none of the socials, but not of one of them has offered to come and get her for any of those things, knowing that I don't drive, and even if I did, I probably wouldn't drive her to church unless it were to Sunday school, because I will not deprive her of her Sunday school. I will not deprive her of her sacrament meetings. I don't like them. I do
Mm-hmm.
think they're harmful, but that is not my decision to make. I don't want them making decisions for me, and so I will not make decisions for them.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Oh my, oh my. Yeah, if you don't mind, it looks like we're getting close to both of Mickey's hands on the 12. So I think you mentioned you don't mind sticking around for an after show.
Nope, I don't mind
Okay,
sticking around at all.
I'll set the after show link into the side chat, and while I'm doing that, I'll ask you, what are you up to these days? What do you got coming up?
Um, On my channel, I did a quick little thank you video for everybody who got me to 100 subs, and also for the people who helped me replace my computer, because I really busted the hell out of it. Um, the next, the next two videos I'm doing, the first one is a patron request, which is how to be an awesome asexual ally. Because on my channel, I do both asexual and LGBTQ plus content, and I also do ex Mormon content. I try to do if I do an ace one, I try to do an ex Mormon one after it. So the next one after that is also a patron request. I will be covering bishop interviews in more depth and also protect every child in more depth. Um,
Mm-hmm.
as a, a couple of weeks ago, um, right around the same time as my computer broke, there was a survey that was released asking about bishops talking to children earlier than 11. They were talking about starting things at 8, and one of the sample questions was what would be appropriate for your bishop to talk to your child about, and one of those things that they had on that survey said worthiness, which is code
Worthiness.
for which is code for the law of chastity stuff, the sex stuff. It involves more than
Okay.
that. It involves more than that, but that's the harmful part of the, like, there's a whole list of questions to get you into the temple, but the big one is whether or not you are having sex outside the bounds of marriage. And and they're talking about 8 to 11-year-olds, and they put worthiness on there
Wow. That is
because
amazing.
they are trying to catch, I think what they're trying to do is they're trying to catch people who harm children sexually. I think they're trying to catch them earlier so that they can make it easier to cover it up. I don't know if that.
Oh, wonderful. Here, I would think that they
Yeah,
would want to catch it earlier such that they could get more cases, but no, they're not doing that.
I mean,
Oh.
that's not the only reason, but that was my first thought when I saw those questions. So
Wow.
yeah, it's and the other questions didn't seem as bad, but the thing is that if you build a certain amount of trust with the bishop, if the bishop hurts you, then you have nowhere to go.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
now I do want to say that there are some bishops who do break the rules. There are some bishops who don't ask these things. There are some bishops who will actually tell you to call a therapist if something comes up. They usually get fired and don't last long.
I was going to ask you how long they got their
They
paychecks. Yeah.
Yeah, they don't actually get paid, but it's considered a job of sorts. They call them callings, but essentially you're working for the church for free.
Oh,
But
great.
oh yeah. So it's so I do want to say this because I don't want people to go out and think that every bishop is evil, because there are some good bishops out there trying to work within the system. I disagree that you can fix the system, but I also understand the desire to try to do as much good as you can. So,
Yeah, that is amazing. Um, okay, so that's the good stuff you've got going. We'll have
yeah,
you over in the wonderful after show, and I want to check and make sure. Yeah, we got a couple people coming over there already, so this is looking pretty good. And I want to state my gratitude to everyone who is here and everyone who is not here. You guys are all great, really and truly. You, Tria, are absolutely wonderful
thank you.
for coming on and talking about this stuff because I can imagine it's somewhat traumatic. It's not the easiest thing in the world to talk about.
Yeah, I really probably should be in therapy, but good luck finding a therapist who understands that Mormonism is way different from most Christian sects, because there are there are similarities, but things are way more extreme than most people understand.
Uh huh. And okay, um, as far as this part of the wonderful show goes, then I will say that I will get to fixing my thank you and my patron screen here, because I got a couple of new patrons lately, and I want to thank you guys for doing that as well. It's there's one patron who pledged $15, and I don't even have a tier that high. I don't know what's going on here, but thank you, and until we meet again, thanks a lot, troops. See you on the other side.